You guys can join 30 million fans across the globe and awaken your inner detective with June's Journey. It's free to download on your phone or tablet, and you can search for hidden objects and collect clues to solve this mystery. It's endless hours of fun with thousands of intricate scenes and new chapters every week. You guys can go and download June's Journey for free today on the Apple Store or Google Play, and let me know how you love it. I am so excited to hear what you guys have to say about it and how much you guys enjoy it as well, and we can all solve the mystery together. Hey guys, what's up? It's Savannah. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to a true crime video. Before we get started, I know it's not why we're here, but I just want to apologize for my appearance, or not apologize for it, but just explain it. I am feeling a little bit under the weather today and don't have it in me to do the full glam. Again, that's not why we're here. We are here to discuss a very, very important case that has had a lot of developments recently. So my appearance does not matter, but I just wanted to address it. So as you guys can tell by the title of today's video, today we are talking about the case of Kristin Smart. Now, if you are following the news of the true crime world, you know that this case has had some miraculous developments over the past couple weeks, and hopefully it's only going to keep continuing from here. This is a case that has been highly requested by you guys for a very long time before these developments even happened. So with that being said, let's jump right on into it. Kristin Denise Smart was born on February 20th, 1977 in Augsburg, Germany, to her mother Denise Smart and her father Stan Smart. Now, to give you a physical description of Kristin, she had blonde hair and was actually very, very tall. She was about 6 feet and 1 inch tall. And after living in Germany for a little bit, Kristin and her family all picked up and moved to Stockton, California. And Kristin also has 2 siblings. She has a brother and a sister. So she was one of 3 children. Now, growing up, Kristin had summer jobs as a camp counselor and a lifeguard at one point. She attended Lincoln High School in Stockton, California, and graduated from there on June 8th, 1995. Now, Kristin's described as having a smile that lit up a room and contagious hugs. She was known as the planner of the family, but loved family vacations and new adventures. She had a passion for adventures and music and the ocean. And when it was time for college, Kristin enrolled at California Polytechnic State University, which is more commonly known today as Cal Poly. Cal Poly is a public university located in San Luis Obispo, California, and Kristin had a really great relationship with her family. She was the type of girl that would call and check in with her family every day or every other day. She was always in communication with her family. Now, this case really starts on Friday, May 24th, 1996, and this was Memorial Day weekend, which for most people is a 3-day weekend. And Kristin was super excited. She had a lot of fun plans to do things with her friends. And on Friday the 24th, Kristin had a plan to go to a fraternity house to celebrate one of her friends' birthdays. She was planning on going with her friends, and it was going to be a really fun time. But before she left for the night, Kristin did call her mother Denise, and Denise did not answer the phone. So Kristin ended up leaving a voicemail telling her mom that she had really great news to share with her and that she couldn't wait to tell her about it, and that she was going to call her again on Saturday to tell her mom this news. Now, Kristin's mother Denise said, "I kind of thought the good news was going to be about a missing final examination being found by her biology professor. This meant Kristin would not have to take her examination over again, which was certainly good news," end quote. However, Kristin never called again the next day. Now, like I said, Kristin was planning on going to a fraternity house to celebrate the birthday of a guy named Ryan Fell, who also went by the name Swampy. That was the kind of nickname that he was given. So Kristin was planning on going over to Swampy's birthday party. This fraternity party was being held at 135 Crandall Way, and it was an off-campus party that Kristin was planning on attending with her 3 girlfriends. Now, somewhere in the night, Kristin's friends decided that they did not want to go to this party, but Kristin still really did. So Kristin ultimately decided that she didn't care if her friends didn't want to go with her. She was going to go by herself. And Kristin, even though she wasn't going with her 3 closest girlfriends, she did have people at the party that she knew of, were her friends and acquaintances, but she didn't have her core group of girlfriends there. So she still knew people. It's not like she was walking in blind to this party. So Kristin got got dropped off at the Kappa Chi fraternity house, and according to one of Kristin's friends, they thought that Kristin was a little upset with her closest friends for leaving her and not going to this party with her. A direct quote from one of her friends says, quote, "When we dropped her off, she seemed a little mad that we wouldn't go with her. She kept saying, 'You go with me,' but I didn't want to go. I told her, 'You better be careful,' and she said she would be, and then she said, 'Bye.'" End quote. Now, this party was your typical college fraternity party. If you've ever been to one, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There were beer kegs and drugs floating around. There was loud music, and it was jam-packed with people. And because of that, there's no real solid account of what Kristin was doing that night and who she was talking to. There's some people say that she was drinking. There's some people say that she wasn't. But as you know, if you've ever been at a party, you're not really watching other people to see whether or not they're drinking, what they're doing. You're kind of just focused on you and in your own world, doing college fraternity party things. You're not watching other people to see who's drinking, who's not. But let's talk about some of the people that were at this party and who were in attendance. Now, the first person I want to talk about is a girl named Cheryl Anderson. Cheryl also went to Cal Poly. She was another student and hung out with Kristin at the party for some of the night. Another guy at this party was a guy named Tim Davis. Tim Davis was also a student at Cal Poly who lived off campus. And this is also when we meet a different guy named Paul Flores. Paul Flores was born on October 22nd, 1976, and was also a Cal Poly student who majored in food science. Now, Paul did not do the best academically. In his first semester, he failed out of English composition and math, and he also received a D in an introductory course in food sciences, which was his major. His freshman GPA in college was a 0.6. He lived on campus in room number 128 of the Santa Lucia Hall dormitory, and at the party, it was said that Paul and Kristin had spoken briefly, but Kristin was not the only girl Paul was talking to that night. Paul is the type of guy who would go to parties and talk to as many girls as he could. It didn't matter if they had boyfriends or not, to try and see which girl he could end up with at the end of the night, which typically was no girl because no one wanted to be around Paul. According to students who knew Paul, he was described as quote unquote terribly annoying. He would always try and flirt with girls who had boyfriends, which, as you can imagine, would cause some sort of a scene. He was known to be socially awkward and would mask that socially awkwardness by drinking. And once the alcohol would hit his system, he would become incredibly obnoxious, which would make people not want to be around him. Now, Paul didn't really have a solid friend group. He didn't really have any real friends. He was said to sit in his dorm room on weekends and drink beers by himself until he felt comfortable enough to leave his dorm room and then go and see what parties that he could get into that night. Now, at about 1:30 a.m., the party was beginning to die down, and Kristin decided that she wanted to leave. So Kristin left the house, and she was pretty drunk at this point from what people who saw her said. And she went and laid down on the grass, like in the front lawn on the grass of the next door neighbor of the house that the party was being held in. And Cheryl was actually the one who found Kristin. Now, Cheryl and Kristin weren't the closest of friends. They didn't really know each other that well outside of this party. So when Cheryl saw Kristin lying on the ground, she decided to go back inside to the party to see if she could find any of Kristin's friends to take her back home, because it was clear that Kristin was not in the right state of mind to get back to her dorm on her own. So Cheryl went back into the party, looked around a little bit, and realized that there was really no one there that could take Kristin home. So she decided that she would be the one to do it. And Tim Davis also went along with this. So the two of them got Kristin up and they started walking back towards the dorms. Now, Paul also noticed Kristin, Tim, and Cheryl walking towards the dorms, and he decided that he was going to walk back with them as well. Now, when he started walking with the group, it was said that Kristin was able to walk, but she was leaning on Paul for support. She had her arm around him. She was taller than him. She was 6'1", and he was shorter than that. She had her arm around him and was kind of leaning on him, and the two of them were walking together, and Cheryl and Tim were also walking with them. Now, once they got to the rec center of campus, Tim parted his ways with the rest of the group because he had parked his car nearby. So that left Kristin, Paul, and Cheryl to walk the rest of the route together. And Cheryl said that while the three of them were walking, she noticed that Paul and Kristin would sometimes stop so Kristin could kind of regain her stability and begin to walk again. And every time, Paul made it clear to Cheryl that she could keep walking on her own and that Paul and Kristin would catch up, that him and Kristin would catch back up with her. But Cheryl said that she found this to be extremely odd and she didn't allow it at any point. Each time he did this, she waited for the two of them to catch up with her again. Now, after a little bit of a walk, Kristin, Cheryl, and Paul reached the intersection of Perimeter and Grand Avenue, which, to give you some context, is about a 9-minute walk from the actual university itself. The three of them all lived in separate dorms. Cheryl's dorm was about a half block south on Grand Avenue. Paul lived in the Santa Lucia Hall, which was about 75 yards up Perimeter Road, and right behind that was Muir Hall, which is where Kristin lived. Now, at this point, they were 9 minutes away from campus, and Cheryl thought that this was a fine place to exit herself and let Paul and Kristin keep going the rest of the way. She would have had to go out of her way to continue to walk Paul and Kristin back, and at that point, she thought it was fine to leave. So that is when Cheryl left the group and Paul and Kristin continued the rest of the way. And this would be the last time Kristin was ever seen. Now, on Saturday, May 25th, Kristin's mother, Denise, was expecting to receive that phone call from Kristin stating whatever the good news was that Kristin was so excited to tell her mom the day prior. However, that phone call never came. But at first, Denise didn't really think too much into it because it was Memorial Day weekend. Kristin said that on a Friday, and Denise knew that Kristin was probably just out hanging out with her friends and didn't think too much of it because she didn't think she had to. Now, as far as Kristin's friends go, the whole day Saturday, they just assumed that she was hungover from the party and just doing her own recovery in her room. However, when they couldn't get a hold of her on Saturday or Sunday, that is when they became a little worried. And her friends actually went up to the dorm advisor and asked the dorm advisor to open Kristin's dorm. That way they could see if she was in there. However, the dorm advisor, for whatever reason, refused to do this. And so it wasn't until Monday, May 27th, Kristin's roommate, which is a girl named Crystal Calvin, came back. She was gone for the Memorial Day weekend, and she came back. When she walked into her room, which was also Kristin's room, she immediately could tell that something was not right. All of Kristin's belongings were left in the exact same way that they were when Crystal had left for the weekend. Once Crystal got back, she started asking around to see if anyone had seen Kristin that day or that weekend. And when Crystal found out that no one had heard from Kristin in 3 days, that is when Crystal made 2 separate calls to the campus police. And once the police got involved, that is when they contacted Kristin's parents. Now, before we move on any further, I do want to take a second and thank our sponsors for today's video. Did you guys know that 80% of the immune system is influenced by the gut? Or that supporting the immune system through proper diet and digestive health enables pets to help better fight environmental allergies? Solid Gold is passionate about gut health because a healthy digestive system positively impacts the immune system and overall wellness of pets. Solid Gold was the first holistic pet food company in America, started in 1974 by Sissy McGill. You guys, Sissy was an absolute trailblazer and pioneer who disrupted a male-dominated industry and created natural pet food before it was cool. Solid Gold's nutritional platform is inspired by their founding belief that high-quality food is the best way to impact our pet's mind, body, and spirit. I'll have you guys know, my dog recently got extremely sick, and it really made me look at the ingredients and the type of food that I was giving him. I ended up switching him over to Solid Gold, and he felt so much better. I could just tell in his overall personality. When I would give him the Solid Gold food, he wasn't as tired. His personality was more alive, and he just seemed overall so much better. So it really had me interested in the type of products that we feed our pets and how important it is to feed them good, wholesome products. Solid Gold's foods are different because they cleanse the digestive system with whole superfoods, balance with living probiotics, and fuel with omega-3 and 6 fatty acids, supporting gut health and nourishing your pet inside and out. Right now, save 30% on Solid Gold products by going to solidgoldpet.com/killer. That's solidgoldpet.com/killer to save 30% on select Solid Gold products. Remember, that is just solidgoldpet.com/killer. All right, you guys, we are back to talk about BetterHelp. You have more than likely heard me talk about BetterHelp before, but if you have not, BetterHelp is an online counseling program that provides you with professional counseling in the comfort of your own home. Once you sign up with BetterHelp, you will be asked to take a short online quiz that will then match you with a counselor that is best deemed to fit your needs. BetterHelp has counselors that specialize in so many different areas, including anxiety, depression, grief, LGBTQ plus matters, relationship problems, family problems, sleeping, trauma, and more. Once you're matched with your counselor, you will then be able to set up video and phone sessions with your counselor. You can do FaceTimes, you can do Zoom calls, and you'll even be able to text your counselor when needed as well. And if for whatever reason at any time you want to change your counselor, you will be able to do so free of charge. BetterHelp is available worldwide and financial aid is available to those who qualify. I love BetterHelp. I am always such a huge advocate for getting help when you need it and not being afraid to ask for help. And I love the fact that BetterHelp is able to give you that professional counseling in the comfort of your own home. If you guys want to try out BetterHelp today, you can do so and get your first month 10% off by going to betterhelp.com/instinct. Again, go to betterhelp.com/instinct and receive 10% off your first month using BetterHelp. Again, that is just betterhelp.com/instinct. Now, right now, you guys are listening to a true crime podcast. So I think it's pretty safe to say that we all love a good mystery. And that's why I think you guys are going to love the game June's Journey. June's Journey is a hidden object murder mystery game that'll have you awakening your inner sleuth and step right into a thrilling adventure set in the heart of the roaring 20s. You will play as June Parker. June Parker is an amateur detective investigating the mysterious death of her sister. This free-to-download mobile game puts your powers of observation to the test, not to mention your memory and logic skills, leaving you refreshed and ready to tackle life's next thrill. Now, something that I really like about June's Journey is that there's never a dull moment. You're never sitting there wondering what's going to happen next. You're always interacting with the game, and it's incredibly fun and challenging in the best way possible. You guys can join 30 million fans across the globe and awaken your inner detective with June's Journey. It's free to download on your phone or tablet, and you can search for hidden objects and collect clues to solve this mystery. It's endless hours of fun with thousands of intricate scenes and new chapters every week. I personally love to play this game right before I go to bed. I'm usually someone who has terrible anxiety right before I go to bed, so I like to do something that keeps my mind going a little bit, and this is perfect for that. You guys can go and download June's Journey for free today on the Apple Store or Google Play, and let me know how you love it. I am so excited to hear what you guys have to say about it and how much you guys enjoy it as well, and we can all solve the mystery together. Now, when Denise answered the phone on Monday, she thought it would be Kristin on the other line. However, it was police asking if Kristin was with her parents instead. Once learning that no one had heard or seen from Kristin in 3 days, Stan Smart, Kristin's father, immediately ran over to the campus the following day to try and find her. Now, on Tuesday, May 28th, 1996, the Smarts attempted to file a missing persons report for Kristin. However, the San Luis Obispo Police Department told her family that it was too early to do so. Now, according to police, they thought it was a really big possibility that Kristin just left for the Memorial Day weekend on vacation and didn't tell anyone. However, Kristin's family knew that this was not the case and Kristin wouldn't do that. When Stan initially met with the campus police, he was given very little to no information at all about what happened to his daughter. The missing persons report was not officially filed until weeks after Kristin went missing, and in it, the authorities claimed, quote, Denise Smart stated that her daughter went on a camping trip, end quote, which is absolutely a lie. That is 100% a lie. Denise never said that her daughter went on a camping trip. Kristin's family was the one who was trying to file the missing persons report, and a lot of people believe that the police said this at all because they were basically trying to save face from the fact that they filed this missing persons report way too late. Now, the first thing that campus police did was interview the 3 students that were last seen with Kristin that night. That included Paul, Cheryl, and Tim. Now, something that I found interesting here was that one of Kristin's friends, a girl named Margarita, who was with Kristin before Kristin had left to go to the party, was said to have talked to Tim after Kristin's family was made aware of her disappearance. And Margarita told Tim that he should contact Kristin's family because they had a lot of questions, obviously. And Kristin's family didn't want to talk to Tim because they thought that he had something to do with it. They genuinely just had questions about what happened that night and wanted to know the timeline of the events that occurred that night. And Tim said 1,000% that he would give them that phone call and that they could talk. However, as of 2018, Tim never made that phone call, which I find to be a little odd. And granted, maybe he's made that phone call since, but if he didn't make it since 2018, I find it hard to believe that he's made it now. Now, when Paul showed up to his interview, he showed up with a black eye and defensive scratches. And when asked how he got these injuries, Paul simply said that he didn't know. He said that he didn't know how he got the black eye or the scratches and that he just woke up with them. However, even after the interviews were conducted, police still said that there was no sign of foul play involved in Kristin's disappearance. Now, the campus authorities were in charge of this case for about a month, which is insanity to me. I can't believe that they had this case for that long. And after about a month, they realized that they were in over their heads with this, and they decided to pass it on to the DA. Now, here is the problem with doing this. The campus police basically skipped a step in doing this because what the campus police should have done was pass this case over to the sheriff's department, the San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Department. Because in passing it over to the DA is basically in charge of looking at all of the evidence and then trying to see if there's enough evidence to take this case to trial. However, because the campus police couldn't gather a lot of evidence, there was no need for them to take it directly to the DA. So by skipping the step of giving this directly to authorities, there really isn't that much evidence to go off of. Therefore, the DA couldn't really do much with this case. The first thing that the DA investigators did do, though, when they got this case is they went back and looked at the transcripts from the interviews of Paul, Cheryl, and Tim that were conducted by the campus police, and they decided to bring the three of them back in for a second interview. Now, in Paul's first interview that he did with authorities, he said that the night that Kristin went missing, he waited at the entryway of his dorm building while watching Kristin walk on the pathway that would lead her to her own dorm. But this was not the same story that Paul told his roommate. So basically, Paul's telling police he stopped walking Kristin once he got to his dorm and watched Kristin walk in the direction of her own and then doesn't know what happened to her after that. However, Paul's roommate, Derek, actually has a very different story. Paul's roommate was not home that weekend. He had also gone away for the Memorial weekend. So when the roommate came back and asked Paul what had happened and where Kristin was, according to Paul's roommate, Paul told his roommate that, quote unquote, she's at home with my parents. Now, that is not something you just casually say when there is a girl missing, and Paul's roommate knew that very well. And so when Paul's roommate was told this, Paul's roommate then went on to tell the authorities what Paul had told him. But a lot of people believe that Paul was probably not lying when he was telling his roommate this, and there could have been some truth to what he was saying. 2 days after Kristin's disappearance, Paul's family had poured concrete in the backyard of their home, and a lot of people to this day believe that Kristin is buried underneath that concrete slab. Now, the next step in this investigation was getting Paul to take a polygraph test, which he initially agreed to do. However, he kept putting it off, and one day the DA investigators were basically fed up with him always trying to back out of it, so they went and picked him up themselves and took him back to the Arroyo Grande police station, where they told him it was time to take a lie detector test. Now, once Paul was actually at the station, he refused to take the test, but did say he would do another interview. This interview was a 90-minute interview that was videotaped, and it is clear through Paul's body language that he's almost trying to protect himself in this interview. He curls his body up, he seems very closed off. However, there is one point in this interview, more towards the very end of it, where a lot of people believe that Paul was about to tell the authorities everything that happened, because he basically took a deep sigh and looked like he was ready to talk. However, one of the investigators that was in the room asked Paul one more question that completely set him off. I'm not sure what the question was. First of all, his body language immediately changed. He sat straight up and he told police, quote, "If you're so smart, tell me where the body is," end quote. Now, call me crazy, but that does not seem like something an innocent person says. Now, I do want to also point out that there was an earring that was found on the back patio of one of the homes that the Flores family owned. Like I said, they owned 2 homes. In one of the homes that they had, they were actually renting out to a woman. And this woman who lived there found a turquoise earring on the back porch. The turquoise earring that was found supposedly had dried blood on it. However, weirdly enough, Kristin's parents were actually never made aware of this earring, and it wasn't until a court deposition that they found out about it. According to Denise, the description of the earring perfectly matched what Kristin's favorite pair of earrings looked like, and when looking through Kristin's earrings, the pair that her mother was talking about was never found. So it is believed that that was Kristin's earring. However, when Kristin's parents asked to see the earring, authorities refused, and her parents actually drove to the police department to pick up the earring themselves. And when they got there, authorities told them that they had actually misplaced the earring. Now, on June 19th, 1996, Paul is brought back in again for another interview about the injuries that he had in his first interview, being the black eye and the scratch marks. And authorities said, quote, "How do we know that you haven't been lying to us?" End quote. To which Paul says, quote, "I just didn't think it was that important." End quote. And that's when Paul switches his story. And instead of saying, "I don't know how I got the black eye," Paul says he now remembers how he got the black eye. And he said he got his black eye from trying to fix the stereo, and he ended up hitting his head on the steering wheel. Now, luckily, just a couple months after the DA got this case, they realized that they too couldn't handle this case alone. So they passed it over to the San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Department. Now, the first thing authorities did is they wanted to search through the dorm rooms of both Paul and Kristin. But weirdly enough, Cal Poly had actually sanitized Paul's entire dorm room at that point. Why would you ever do that? Now, a lot of people believe that Cal Poly was really just trying to cover their own tracks and save face because they didn't want to be known as the campus where one of their students got murdered. So a lot of people believe that that is why there was so much cover up going on here and why it seems like the school is really protecting Paul. Now, authorities, when going through Paul and Kristin's dorm room, they brought in cadaver dogs and grave detection dogs. And when bringing the cadaver dogs in, the cadaver dogs were sent into Paul's room one at a time. There were 2 of them, and each one of them marked the same 3 spots. The first spot was on Paul's bed, the second spot was his trash can, and the third spot was his telephone. Now, at this point, police believed that more than likely Paul Flores was responsible for Kristin's death. They believed he brought her back to his dorm room and made sexual advances towards her, and she tried to fight him off, which ultimately ended up to him killing her. Now, the first of many searches of Paul's property happened on July 15th, 1996, when the home of Paul's father, Ruben Flores, was searched. Authorities decided to do this after the comment that was made to the roommate when Paul said that she was at home with his parents. Now, according to Kristin's parents, they don't believe that this initial search was done properly because authorities supposedly just went into the house, didn't really pay attention to any detail, just kind of walked through. They did find newspaper clippings about Kristin's disappearance underneath one of the beds in the home. However, that was the only thing that they found, and they couldn't really go off of anything with that. Now, the second search occurred sometime between the summer or fall of 1996 on 529 East Branch Street in Arroyo Grande, California. Now, there isn't much detail that we know about this particular search. Cadaver dogs were said to have picked up some scent. However, we really don't know anything other than that. Now, the third search was on June 20th of the year 2000 at the East Branch Street home again. However, the problem with this warrant is that it didn't allow authorities to dig up the backyard. None of these warrants permitted authorities to dig up the backyard, and that was the main theory, that Kristin was underneath this concrete slab. And so because they couldn't dig up the backyard, this really was a huge missed opportunity. Now, as you can imagine, this case was extremely excruciating for the Smart family because every time they felt like they were taking 3 steps forward, they also felt like they were taking 2 steps back. They would get the search warrant, but then it wouldn't allow them to dig up the backyard. They would find the earring, but then authorities would lose it. Things like that. It just felt like there was never really any true progress. In May 2002, the San Luis Obispo Superior Court judge declared that Kristin Smart was legally deceased. There was no body, however, based off of all the evidence that they had so far, it was believed that Kristin was no longer alive. So with that all being said, let's fast forward to what has transpired over the past few weeks that leads us to where we are today. In February 2020, officials obtained 4 search warrants for Paul Flores. 2 of the warrants were served in San Luis Obispo, 1 was served in Los Angeles, California, and 1 was served in the state of Washington. Now, it is not clear what the warrants were for, but investigators said that they were for quote-unquote very specific items. In April 2020, an additional search warrant was granted for Paul's home, and authorities said that in this search, they found evidence that linked Paul to Kristin's murder. Now, fast forward a year after that, in March 2021, the search warrants were issued again for Ruben Flores' home, which is Paul's father, in Arroyo Grande. This search included cadaver dogs and radar technology to search the home, and authorities found evidence during this search as well. And it was because of that search that on April 13th, 2021, the San Luis Obispo Superior Court judge signed 2 arrest warrants and 2 search warrants for Paul Flores and Ruben Flores. It was on this day that Paul was named the prime suspect and faces charges of murder, while Ruben faces charges of accessory to murder. Now, what's super interesting here is that there actually is a podcaster named Chris Lambert who created an 8-part podcasting series called Your Own Backyard that is all about the case of Kristin Smart, and police say that it's because of his series that more key witnesses were brought forward and ultimately Paul and Ruben were put behind bars. On April 14th, 2021, the San Luis Obispo District Attorney named Dan Doe said that Kristin was killed during an attempted rape by Paul Flores in his dorm room and that his father helped hide her body. Investigators also said that they believe that they know where Kristin was buried. On April 15th, Paul and Ruben made their first court appearance, however, did not enter any plea deal. It is also said that Kristin's family is filing lawsuits against both Paul and Ruben. These will be civil lawsuits for inflicting emotional distress over the years since Kristin's disappearance. So that really is where we're at in this case. As you can tell, there has been so many great developments happening, and I'm sure as time continues, we will learn about the specifics about what was found in the home and what really authorities were looking for when they had those search warrants, and I think it's going to be very, very telling. So that, as of right now, is the Kristin Smart case, and like I said, I'm sure there will be many things that transpire over the weeks and months and probably years to come with this one. This will definitely be one to watch. I'm very interested to hear what you guys have to say in the comments below. With that being said, you guys, that is all for me today. Thank you so much for tuning in to another true crime video here on my YouTube channel. I'll be back in a couple days with a brand new one, and until then, stay safe. Bye, guys.